The algorithm has fed me some interesting ponderings as of late. When sitting down to begin your world building or your campaign building for a tabletop role playing game, what do you do first? Do you come up with structures of different moments that you want to hit in a campaign and go from there? Or do you plant little seeds around the game world, waiting for the players to proverbially water those seeds and take the game from there? How can we use both of these designs to improve our quality campaign prep and our dungeon design? So, if you'll indulge me, this is KD&D, and it's a show where we talk all things tabletop role-playing games. So recently, I was watching this video from Local Script Man on YouTube, and I was introduced to the terms Gardner and architect used to describe writing styles. Now, I'm probably very late to the party on this, depending on which corner of the internet you are coming from, but initially I actually completely misunderstood what these meanings were. I was thinking of them through a game master's lens and not necessarily a storyteller writer's lens. I imagined an architect being a game master who took the pieces that the players brought to the table, and maybe they broke them during play, some of your pieces, and you build a structure from all of that. And the gardener, I assumed, was someone who spent a lot of time planning and planting, prepping plot hooks and seeds that the players would eventually tend to and, water, and that would develop from there. So anyway, turns out I had it completely backwards. From a storyteller's perspective, architecture is planning an outline and then detailing and executing different things, whereas gardening is planting seeds, watering them, and writing out of the story and watching as the story grows from there. So from this confusion, I actually came up with some different musings on whether it's better for campaign prep to be a gardener or an architect. And you could apply this to anything that you're preparing, whether it's a full campaign, just a one-shot, or a mega dungeon. So to an extent, you really do need to be a gardener because you want your players' characters' choices to leave a lasting impact on the world. And there's no way to really architect around what's going to happen in a moment of improvisation at the game table. But you also really need to feel like an architect. A lot of the time, preparing for a game can feel like an architect. And from my personal experience, a lot of new game masters will come up to me thinking way too big picture architecturally, trying to plan out every last moment, when really what you and your friends, I imagine, really want is just to sit down and play the game. And I'm actually going to chicken out. I'm not going to pick gardening or architect on being the better game prep style for a game master writer. I'm actually instead just going to share with you 4 insights that I've come up with that's going to help you with your game prep that remind me or I thought of during this particular reflection. Step 1, you're going to want to think like an architect and you want to create an outline. You want to at least start with who is a big bad guy? What are some of the potential themes of conflict that could be in your campaign? This will be useful so that you can give your players a heads up on what to expect, and you can find ways to slowly weave player backstories into the overall plan that you've already kind of thought up just by thinking of general conflicts, themes, scenes you want to hit. Building right off of that, number 2, you want to make sure that you connect your PCs to the story. Pieces of your story are going to break from player characters' actions in the world. You need to allow this and learn to rebuild. That is the nature of tabletop role-playing games. Players' pieces can serve as mortar that will bind together unconnected parts of your existing structure. Let's say you've got some unique characters in your party. You've got a man who's obsessed with giants, you've got a holy paladin, and you've got a bounty hunter who specializes in the undead. I don't know how you tie those people together. Maybe you didn't plan it from the beginning of the campaign, but maybe you'd be coming up with a lich, big bad, that is perfected a new magic that allows him to resurrect giants. And then bang, all 3 of those players are going to instantly have buy-in. Have those undead giants threaten the home village of a 4th player character, and that's the whole party's motivation right there. Tip number 3, we need to think more like a gardener. We need to allow our players room to make decisions, to grow, to spread out their roots, right? And reach out for new things. Some of my best sessions have come where all I had prepped was a couple of sentences jotted down about the situation I was putting them into or the situation they had gotten themselves into. And I found it's okay to put some faith in the players to help them figure out a course of action and let the dice dictate which one is successful. Sometimes a player might figure out a cooler solution than you ever could to a puzzle or to a situation, and part of that's because there's 4 or 5 of them, and 5 brains is a little greater than 1. One encounter that I had, it was a puzzle that required a 6-letter word solution, and it was in a casino-themed room. The answer was hearts, like the suit on a deck of cards, but after several rounds of struggling in a tough combat and not figuring out the answer, one player thought they had it when they came up with the 6-letter word gamble. And I had this inner monologue moment where I was like, gosh, that's such a good idea. It's honestly cooler than the real answer. And I regret to inform you that I stuck to my prep and I told them that gamble wasn't the right answer. A few rounds later, they finally figured out the real answer was hearts, and the reveal wasn't one of like, yeah, we finally figured it out. It was like, thank God, this has been so tedious. And honestly, I wish I'd taken that answer and let them roll with it. My fourth and final piece, and I think this lines up more with the gardening school of thought, is start small. It's okay to not have a big grand structure prepped out at the beginning of a campaign. Do not ever let yourself wait because you don't know exactly how they're going to get from point A to point B. Your players will figure that out. They'll come up with creative things. You'll think of something after a few games. This has to be an approach for someone who doesn't want to feel like they've wasted time on prep. You hear that all the time, Dungeon Masters talking about all my prep over here and the players going all the way in this direction, right? So instead, just come up with a few NPCs, a few ideas for quests, 1 or 2 are plenty, and plant them in a town. If the players go to that town, they may just pass through, or they may latch on to one of those 2 things. And then, after that session has hit, you can begin fleshing out the rest. In my last video, where I talked about Dungeon 23, I mentioned that having players playtest your early rooms and levels was a great creative fodder for developing rooms deeper within. This advice has also been echoed by Bandit's Keep in this video. While watching this earlier today, it made me think of this architect and Gardner stuff that I had been hearing about. Basically, what Bandit had said was, making a mega dungeon, you need to make it so that it's for play, right? It's important that you don't structure it all up like a big narrative. And I think that is helped by doing test sessions with your players. Trying out different story beats and tying backstories into your dungeon gives players a reason to want to explore, to keep digging into that dungeon. Nobody wants to meticulously draw out 365 rooms necessarily. That's more of an old school style of gameplay where you get out a piece of graph paper and you meticulously track treasure and experience points. And, you know, if that's your yum, I don't mean to yuck it, but I think some people want something that's, they're more motivated at least by something that connects to their player. They're more selfish, honestly. So take something from a character's backstory and stick it somewhere on level 2, level 3 of your dungeon into level 2, level 3 of your campaign, wherever those monsters line up. And now you've got 3 levels of play to hook them with interesting things that they have that could pertain to your in-world lore, or maybe it will relate to another character's backstory. But by the time they get to level 3, you'll have multiple opportunities to tie different people together and sprinkle different things out so that they are motivated to follow those next 20 levels down, and so on and so forth. So which of these styles are better? Both. Both are better. I hope some of the ideas in this video have helped you get a little bit more creative and give you permission to feel a little bit more loose with your campaign prep. Drop a like and a comment and have fun out there. In my last video, where, nope, that's back to KD&D, I'm just recording this for a second to see how bad the glare is on my glasses. Is it any better if I turn this off? It does not appear to be. No, it looks like this here.